Hello everyone, this is Adam Goldberg, co-founder and Chief Innovation Officer at Clear Sailing. Today I'm going to present the 8th part in a 10-part series on the Attribution Management Buyers Guide. Today's focus, we're going to talk about what you should expect or look for out of the box when engaging with the new attribution management vendor. So though attribution can be a very complicated and complex set of mathematical algorithms, it doesn't have to always be that way to be effective. At least on day one, you can start with much more simple models that can have great effect. So it's important when evaluating either technology vendors or service providers or building your own technology to understand what you're going to be able to do on day one with that system versus what you might be able to do a year down the line once data is collected. So a couple of questions that you should ask a vendor are simply, one, what am I going to get out of the box? On day one, when I turn your system on, what kind of attribution am I going to be able to perform at that point in time? And then the second question you want to ask is, what kind of verification do they have of these models that they provide out of the box? Just because there's something simple and easy to use, is it going to be effective? So you're going to want some proof from them and some understanding that by implementing these more elementary models on day one that they're going to be effective. So here's some examples of some models that we know to be effective from our work here at Clear Sailing that you might be able to expect to get or should ask to get out of the box when working with a new vendor. On day one, without having a lot of data in the system, or in fact no data, you can't really begin doing very complex mathematical modeling. There's just not enough data to support it. So the first model that you might want to look to use is simply an even attribution model. This is a model that takes the sale and divides it equally over all of the ads that were used in that particular order. The next step up from an even model that you might look to implement is what we would call an even with an exclusion model. And an exclusion model is one that gives you the opportunity to exclude giving credit to certain ads even though they were involved in that purchase path. The most common example of an exclusion in its use has to deal with brand terms. The most common term closing, or the most common ad closing any sale today, is from paid search, and within paid search it's your brand term. A brand term is your company's name or a misspelling or a typo of it. Well, we find very often that the last item clicked prior to conversion is a brand term, and the reason why that's happening is that clients have already decided what they want to buy and where they want to buy it from. They're simply trying to navigate back to the site that they decided to purchase from, and their chosen navigation method is to use paid search, click on a sponsored link, and that search is often a brand term. So therefore, having the ability to exclude credit to brand terms, for example, at the end of a path, can give you a much more accurate picture of the ads that are really involved impacting the sales, and versus ads that are getting credit solely by being brand terms at the end. Another model that you should look for out of the box is one that we call path length. And this allows you to set weighting percentages based on the number of steps in a path. So for example, if 2 ads were clicked and you didn't believe an even model was the most accurate attribution, you didn't want to do a 50-50 split, maybe you feel strongly that the first ad, what we call the introducer, is the most impactful, and therefore you would give more credit to the first ad, maybe 60% or 70 or 75, and give the remainder to the second ad in that path. So by path length, you're able to set the weighting by each step. So if there's 2 steps, 3, 4, so on and so forth, you could set those weights. And then the fourth model that I would be looking for is what we refer to as rules-based. This is what you're going to be able to use when you know what the specific paths are. So for example, you may feel as though that when someone sees a shopping engine and then goes to paid search and converts, that there's a certain weighting that you want when those 2 ad sources are used. And you may have a different weighting that if it was a display ad served first, then a search. So rules-based allows you to see the specific paths, and based on the type of path that it is, by the types of ads used, allows you to set those different weights. So an experienced attribution management provider should be able to provide you case studies on clients that are using these models to give you confidence that if you yourself implement them, they're going to be effective. They should also be able to give you, other indicators of success and other ways of measuring it. Of course, the best indicator for any business that's doing attribution is your own bottom line. If you're able to see that your bottom line is increasing through the use of these models, then you can have a lot of confidence. I highly recommend that you start with some benchmarks, know where you are before you start attribution, what your return on ad spend is, what your profit return is, your revenue, etc. So this way, when you put those models in, you can tell if they're having the desired impact. I'm Adam Goldberg, co-founder and Chief Innovation Officer at Clear Sailing. Stay tuned for the following parts of our series.